Alright everyone, let's continue on with Plato's Stepchildren. Captain Kirk, along with First Officer Spock and Chief Medical Officer Dr. McCoy, beam down to a planet rich in rare chironide mineral deposits to investigate a distress call. Once there, they are greeted by a friendly dwarf named Alexander, who leads the landing party to meet the rest of his people, who have adopted classical Greek culture and name themselves Plutonians in honor of the Greek philosopher Plato. All the Plutonians, except for Alexander, seem to possess telekinetic powers. Later, it is determined one of the biochemical effects of Alexander's dwarfism is the inability to make use of the chironide. The Plutonians have lured the Enterprise to their planet because their leader, Parman, requires medical help. After being treated by Dr. McCoy, Parman demands McCoy remain on the planet to treat the other Plutonians. But Captain Kirk objects. The Plutonians use their powers to punish him. They humiliate Kirk and Spock as Dr. McCoy watches, forcing them to sing and dance like court jesters. Parman forces Spock to laugh and, despite the strong objection of Dr. McCoy, to cry. Later, the Plutonians use their powers to force two other Enterprise officers to the planet for their entertainment, Communications Officer Lieutenant Uhura and Nurse Chapel. Once on the planet, the officers quickly get their bodies usurped by Parman, who proceeds to make Kirk, Spock, Chapel, and Uhura, all forced to wear Greek garb, perform for the gathered Plutonians and a captive McCoy, including forcing Kirk and Uhura into a passionate kiss, as well as Spock and Chapel. Alexander becomes angry after watching the humiliating tricks played upon the crew by his Plutonian masters. He tries, unsuccessfully, to attack Parman with a knife. Earlier, however, Dr. McCoy had managed to isolate and identify the chironide mineral that provides the inhabitants with their special powers, and is abundant in the natural food and water supply of the planet. McCoy is able to prepare a serum and inject Kirk and Spock with doses of it. Furthermore, since Alexander tells them each person has a different and incompatible psionic frequency, they will not have to deal with a massed attack. As a result, Kirk uses his newfound telekinetic powers to defeat Parman for Alexander's life. The Plutonian admits defeat and begs for mercy. He promises to mend his bullying ways. Kirk warns him the events encountered here will be reported to Starfleet, and if Parman goes back on his word, the powers can be recreated by anyone whenever they wish to defeat him. Kirk promises to send appropriate medical technicians to the planet as long as the Plutonians behave themselves. McCoy finds a way to enable Alexander Spotted to use the chironide, but Alexander will not internalize the empowering substance because he did not wish to become one of them. He is released from his duty of serving the planet's denizens as a slave and jester, and requests to go with the Enterprise to start a new, and presumably happier, life elsewhere in the galaxy. Yeah, I would do that too. Anyway, let's look at some certain production elements of this story. The episode featured a kiss between James T. Kirk and Lieutenant Uhura, which is usually described as the first scripted interracial kiss on American television. The first interracial kiss on television seems to have occurred some years earlier on British television in You and Your Small Corner. This featured a kiss between black actor Lloyd Record and white actress Elizabeth McLennan, which was broadcast live on the UK's ITV channel in June 1962. Another such kiss occurred in 1966 when the Wild Wild West, James T. West, and Princess Ching Lang shared a white and Asian interracial kiss, and The Night the Dragon Screamed aired January 14, 1966. In the same year on I Spy, Kelly Robinson and Sam also had a white and interracial kiss in the episode The Tiger aired January 5, 1966. There had also been a kiss between Sammy Davis Jr. and Nancy Sinatra on Moving with Nancy in 1967, a year before Plato's Stepchildren aired. The episode portrayed the kiss as involuntary, being forced by telekinesis, perhaps to avoid any hint of romance that would risk outrage among some sensitive viewers. Also, Shatner recalls in Star Trek Memories that NBC insisted their lips never touch. The technique of turning their heads away from the camera was used to conceal this. However, Nichelle Nichols insists in her autobiography Beyond Uhura, written in 1994 after Shatner spoke, that the kiss was real, even in takes where her head obscures their lips. When NBC executives learned of the kiss, they became concerned it would anger TV stations in the Deep South. Earlier in 1968, NBC had expressed similar concern over a musical sequence in a Petula Clark special in which she touched Harry Belafonte's arm, a moment cited as the first occasion of direct physical contact on American television between a man and woman of different races. At one point during negotiations, the idea was brought up of having Spock kiss Uhura instead, but William Shatner insisted they stick with the original script. NBC finally ordered 2 versions of the scene to be shot, one where Kirk and Uhura kissed, and one where they did not. Having successfully recorded the former version of the scene, Shatner and Nichelle Nichols deliberately flubbed every take of the latter version, thus forcing the episode to go with the kiss intact. As Nichelle Nichols writes, knowing that Gene was determined to air the real kiss, Bill shook me and hissed menacingly in his best ham-fisted, quirky and staccato delivery. I won't kiss you. Won't kiss you. It was absolutely awful, and they were hysterical and ecstatic. The director was beside himself, and still determined to get the kissless shot. So he did it again and seemed to be fine. Cut! Brit, that's a wrap! The next day they screened the dailies, and although I rarely attended them, I couldn't miss this one. Everyone watched as Kirk and Uhura kissed and kissed and kissed. I like to set the record straight. Although Kirk and Uhura fought it, they did kiss in every single scene. When the non-kissing scene came on, everyone in the room cracked up. The last shot, which looked okay on the set, actually had Bill wildly crossing his eyes. It was so corny and just plain bad it was unusable. The only alternative was to cut out the scene altogether, but that was impossible to do without ruining the entire episode. Finally, the guys in charge relented. To hell with it, let's go with the kiss. I guess they figured we were going to be cancelled in a few months anyway, and so the kiss stayed. There were, however, few contemporary records of any complaints commenting on the scene. Nichelle Nichols observes that Plato's Stepchildren, which first aired in November 1968, received a huge response, receiving one of the largest batches of fan mail ever, all of it very positive, with many addressed to me from girls wondering how it felt to kiss Captain Kirk, and many to him from guys wondering the same thing about me. However, almost no one found the kiss offensive, except from a single mildly negative letter from one white Southerner who wrote, I am totally opposed to the mixing of races. However, anytime a red-blooded American boy like Captain Kirk gets a beautiful dame in his arms that looks like Uhura, he ain't gonna fight it. Nichelle Nichols notes that, for me, the most memorable episode of our last season was Plato's Stepchildren. Professional dancer Armando Gonzalez doubled as Spock to perform the flamingo near Captain Kirk's head in the first act. So, yeah, pretty interesting stuff and very memorable stuff as well. I give Plato's Stepchildren 5 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me in a little bit for Wink of an Eye. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.